Okay, thank you so much everybody for joining us today, and we have a lovely panel today. We have with me Ruchi Tushir. She is the VP and GM of Wolters Kluwer. Thank you, Ruchi, for coming here. And we have Mr. Parveen Kumar. He is the National Head of Assurance, ASA and Associates. Thank you so much, sir. And Mr. Naveen Agarwal, who's the co-managing partner of SS Kothari Mehta and Company. Thanks again.
My pleasure.
Thank you. And of course, the discussion is about audit automation. The technology is taking world by a storm, and India is in one of the front runners across the world. Now, Ruchi, to begin with, tell us a little about your company and what kind of solutions are you providing in India specifically?
Sure. So let me actually set up the context for Wolters Kluwer. We are a professional services and software solution provider across segments like healthcare, tax and accounting, finance and compliance solutions, corporate performance and ESG. In India, we operate under the name of Global Growth Markets, and we are focusing on providing solutions for clients in healthcare, which means medical education, hospitals and pharma, and tax and accounting as well. So this is how we operate in the country.
Yeah. So Ruchi, as per you, how do you see the space changing in the next 5 to 10 years?
So very interesting question, Divya, and I think before we get started, I think we have to understand why this is evolving. And I see it from 3 aspects. First and foremost, the client expectations and how the landscape of business is changing in the country. We're dealing with scenario where the legal entities have changed. There's interwoven complexity of organizations. We're talking about different investment opportunities as well as special purpose investments. We're also looking at, a massive increase in the number of transactions and amount of transactions as well.
Yeah.
We're also looking at, a big focus on, let's say, the non-tangible assets. Now, if these things are changing, there is no way that you could continue to operate with the same standards of, audit or the processes that were built for traditional businesses.
Absolutely.
So the first aspect is, the changing landscape of business and client expectations. The second is the role of auditors themselves. And this is also an area where we've seen, the auditors within the organization have to constantly see how do they add value and are rising above just the transactions to more value-added services.
Right.
They are constantly pressurized to deliver more revenues of streams of revenue, and to do so, they have to figure out rising above transactions and looking at value-added services. The third most important element is the changing landscape of regulatory requirements as well. So if you look at ICAI and NEFRA, you would realize that ICAI, which is basically the Institute of Chartered Accountants in India, and they've come out with guidelines to how automation and audit should go hand in hand together. Back in 2017, they released a guidance document which spoke about how auditors need to elevate themselves on doing the right level of audit, and which should improve the efficiencies and the efficacies, and most importantly, bringing out the risk perspectives which can in turn create a much more robust outcomes out of the audit processes. That is ICAI. Even NEFRA, which is the National Financial Reporting Authority, they constantly look at how do we are improving on the quality of financial outcomes and audit processes. They've also come out with guidelines back in 2019 or so, and they continue to evolve as well, on how we should be looking at improving the quality, the risk ability, and the approach of auditors to be truly in alignment with what the business requires. Create a pattern of trust, the right compliance, and in turn create an economy which is very, very robust on these standards. Absolutely. So if you really look at it, Divya, there are 3 aspects to it. Businesses are changing, the auditors are under constant pressure to deliver more, and then there are regulatory guidelines as well. So all of these 3 coming together are truly evolving how audit should look at from an automation and an efficient approach towards driving those audit projects with their clients.
Absolutely. Going to you, Praveen sir, you have been in this space for like a really long time and you have a great understanding. Continuing on the same, if you could throw some light on how the traditional businesses used to be and how the things have changed today in the current scenario.
Yeah, Divya. So, if you remember, go back 15 years or 10 years from now, the transactions were not that complex. The businesses were, they were carried out in rather understandable and simple terms. Like for manufacturing, you would collect payment through cash or through check or through bank transfers. Yeah. Now, in the present scenario, the situation is totally different. There's a lot of automation which has happened. Almost every business is now working in ERP environment.
True.
Every business is taking the payments are happening on online mode method, and a lot of things are automated already. So in auditing, it becomes a little more complex than what was there traditionally. It's not only looking at, when I talk from statutory audit point of view, it's not only looking at whether the financial statements are giving true and fair picture or not, but also to report whether the internal control systems in the company, they are existing and they are working or not. Yeah. So the role of auditors have changed, and Devya, one thing which one must understand, that there is a increasing gap in the understanding of audit per se between the society at large and what the auditors are doing. Yeah. So in order to shorten that gap, auditors need to go a little further. Okay. They need to do a little more, and they cannot do it in a traditional way. They have to apply the audit tools, they have to automate the audit process, and I am talking statutory audit. Right. When I talk about internal audit, the expectations are much more. It's not only the society at large, but management also look at the auditors to give them the value addition, like we were discussing in the past.
Absolutely. Going to you, Mr. Naveen, if you could tell us now, all this has to be implemented. Now, what do you think are the risks and challenges to begin with?
Yeah, so frankly speaking, audit automation is not a new thing. Yeah. And it was very well there since the Big Four started practice in India. And they were practicing this audit automation since the day one. But however, for the firms, down the line, there are some challenges, particularly with respect to the training of the people, the finding out the right solutions, the IT budgets, the resources, the trained resources. And unfortunately, in India, the attrition rates are very, very high with respect to the trained professionals. And with those challenges, you have to live with it. And many times the firms which are not the Big Fours, other than the Big Fours, they are facing the challenges of, investing into the right IT resources. And when we talk about the audit automation softwares, it is not something which you have to implement at, at a tier 1 level or a tier 2 level. It has to be across the organization, down the line to the teams. Yeah. And for that, you have to have the right IT budgets and the right implementation partners as well.
Of course, so we will come to cost later. Meanwhile, Ruchi, if you could tell us, what are your thoughts on the role of audit automation, and how do you think it will enhance the audit quality and efficiency, with the current scenario?
Sure, Divya, and I think it goes again back to the fact we're in a landscape of evolution, digitization. Just recently we used to talk about Web 2.0, we used to talk about Industrial Revolution 4.0. Yeah. I think in audit automation it is audit automation 2.0. And there is a way we have to look at it now. I almost see this as a spectrum and a journey of 4 pillars, where we start off from just building the foundation. And I must call out that a lot of firms have already mastered the foundation element of it. What I mean by foundation is the basics of gathering data, across different legal entities, across different processes, and having one consistent layer of it. Okay. Now that's the standard baseline. We move on from there to bring about the analytics piece, which is where I do see a lot of firms actually building their prowess and also making investments. And when we talk about analytics, we're just not saying analytics from a perspective of whatever data you have converted into dashboards? No, but we're talking about predictive analytics. Example like compliance dashboards or compliance risk prediction basis the historical data.
All right.
Now this is a layer which I do see a lot of audit firms actually building a lot of traction and capability also. But there's more and beyond that. There is process excellence that you could drive, which is the third pillar that I think is very, very needed in this scheme of things. In today's world, we could also call it robotic process automation. What we are talking about is, eliminating regular, repeatable tasks through technology, but with human intelligence. So what it means is, those transactions, paper auditing, entry of data could be handled through let's say the automation itself, which is a very critical part, and I do see a lot of audit firms and the automation software also focusing on that element.
Right.
Now the fourth pillar, which is the vision, where we should all think about moving, is where we get in the cognitive intelligence. We're talking about leverage of natural language, which can translate, let's say, your handwritten notes into text, into data which is much more structured. We're talking about, moving from just about predictive to machine learned and artificial intelligence led insights. That is truly the, go forward part of it. And also leveraging, let's say, cloud computing, or for that matter, blockchain. I mean, Mr. Parveen spoke about such humongous amount of transactions. It is not feasible to do it with standard process and automated technology. So we have to look at how do we bring that through cloud computing and blockchain and handle that massive, massive transactions, which can then yield the audit results, which are more reliable, accurate, and builds the confidence not just for the management, but also for market at large. We're dealing in an era of startups, which are constantly engaging with consumer on a digital platform. Just imagine the kind of transactions an auditor has to look at before they finally form their opinion on it. Not feasible to do it with handwritten notes, or for that matter Excels, but we definitely have to evolve to this, transitioned cognitive ability of managing these processes. And I think in the end, it is all about making audit process a lot more compliant, lot more in alignment with the guidelines that are laid out, and in true sense, creating that risk aversion, risk intelligence, and creating again an economy which is a lot more stable and is looking at audit as a factor of trust and credibility built up.
Absolutely. Now, building on the same, Mr. Parveen, if you could tell us, see, the transition is bound to happen. There is no way that we can evade that. But at the same time, in the past, whenever any kind of fraud would come to light, we would talk about the auditors. Now, in today's time, when the technology is changing and it's becoming more ERP friendly, how do you think what will be the auditor's role? And do you also think that technology might overtake and there might be, some impact on unemployment as well?
So that's interesting question, Divya. I'll start with giving you an example. The inventory, at the year end, the auditors will go and do the checking of whether the inventory is lying or not. So earlier people used to go and count. Now in large setup, they are using drones. So they are just using the technology, and the work which was supposed to, which used to take 15 days or 20 days, is done within half a day because of the technology. So this technology is really helping the audit firms and auditors in giving, reaching to the opinions. Now when you talk about the accounting frauds, see, frauds will always happen. We cannot stop that happening. Accounting frauds will always be there. Auditors' role is, like I mentioned in the beginning also, there's an expectation gap. Now it is expected that auditor will go extra mile and will do slightly more than what is required by the book to reach to the opinion. And I am talking statutory audit again. So, the auditors will need to apply these technology and these analytical tools in order to have a comprehensive view of the business activities as a whole. You cannot just select the samples and reach to the conclusion.
Yeah.
You have to look at the whole transaction as a on a global basis, and then through the analysis you can come to the conclusion that, oh, there is something which is not right in this scenario. So, they can go back and qualify their reports, or they can just give a disclaimer in case they are not happy with the results which are coming there. The role of auditor is to give an opinion whether the financial statements, the balance sheet and profit and loss, whether they are giving true and fair picture or not. Their role is not to give true and correct picture.
Okay.
There is a difference.
Yeah.
So, they will just apply the audit procedures. So, there is guidance, there are various auditing standards which they need to apply while doing the audits. They are issued by the Audit and Assurance Standard Board of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, and these standards are aligned with international auditing standards. So, if an auditor is not doing their work as guided by these standards and something goes wrong, of course, there will be a question by the regulator, there will be a question by the society at large, and they will also be held responsible, or if they are negligent in their duties.
Absolutely. Mr. Naveen, again, digital technology must be used, as an audit enabler. Now, you have been using solutions by Wolters Kluwer for quite some time now. How do you think that their solutions are helping you with good governance and maintaining transparency, etc.?
Yeah, so to be very specific, we are using the technology for more than a decade now.
Yeah.
And before Wolters Kluwer's solutions, we were using some other credible audit documentation solutions. And after the fallout of that, the implementation of those solutions. Why? Because again, the technology again has a cost to it. Why I'm again and again saying cost? Because ultimately, particularly with regard to the audit documentation, you have to have those documentation to the last level, and the people who are doing the actual execution on the ground, they should have the right infrastructure, they should have the right solution in order to get the documentation starting from the scratch. And then the review of those documentation by the managers, the directors, the partner is a process, and those processes are very well defined in the auditing standards which are there.
Right.
So, the solution which is there with Wolters Kluwer actually has both the advantages. One advantage definitely on the cost front, so that the solution can be implemented at the last level.
Okay.
Second is about the ease of implementation. When we talk about the ease of implementation, the people are able to understand that solution.
Yeah.
They should be happy about using that solution, because technology, if it is too cumbersome to use, will not have many users.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, with that solution, we are having, we are getting the better results. Secondly, with respect to the audit documentation, because we have almost thousands, more than thousands of pages with respect to the auditing standards, and these are based on international standards. So, remembering those standards and expecting everybody down the line, starting from those people who are just entered into the profession. So, it is a very difficult task for them. Although our curriculum has that in the initial stages, but nobody can remember thousands of pages.
True.
So, with the solution which is presently with Wolters Kluwer is there, so that solution has multiple set of questions which are based on the real time standards, and answering those questions by these people is very easy task. And based on the answers you are having the further questions. So, with that you are having a real time documentation, and that is also a requirement of ISQC 1, which is also, I don't know whether in the newspapers you have heard about it, that the NFRA has suggested for e-lockers. So, there is a time limit for the audit documentation also. So, with the implementation of the e-lockers, these solutions like the Wolters Kluwer solutions, this is going to help in terms of the implementation.
So you wanted to say something?
Yes, and you know, while we absolutely value our esteemed customers like Mr. Parveen and Mr. Naveen and the associated firms, I did want to call out and you know, build upon what Mr. Naveen were already saying here. Over the last 2-3 years that we introduced the solution in the market, we've actually seen a 40 to 50% growth on acquiring new customers year over year.
Okay.
So we're currently with 80 customers in the country, and we grow almost 40 to 50% every single year.
Excellent.
That showcases the ability and the need for audit automation matched up with the technology which can actually do this well for the clients. So yeah, I just thought I'll add that here.
Okay. So Mr. Parveen, again, now how would you advise people to, you know, go about selecting audit tools and software, again, because you have been using them for so long?
So, Divya, we are a firm which is one of the youngest firm in the country, but reached to that level with you know, 1,000 people and 8 locations. And so the main focus was to implement technology from the very beginning. And if we are changing with the times, we'll grow very, very fast.
Absolutely.
If we don't, then we'll stagnate. So to give you another example, like, you know, the other day I was talking to one of my team member, and I told them to bring out some audit work paper. So smart people, smart guys, they went to Chat GPT, got it printed and brought it here.
Right,
I said, how could you write such a nice paragraph or such a nice note within 10 minutes?
Right.
He said, sir, I have also had a cup of tea after writing it. So what I'm trying to convey is that this, you need to constantly change with the time. And if you are using automation and these tools, they are really going to help you, all the time. One should be, it's all about mindset, right? So be ready to change and be ready to implement whatever the new is coming.
Absolutely.
So these tools are certainly helping,
Tools
our
are helping,
audit.
but we have to remember that we have to put human intelligence
Absolutely.
to use as to how and where to use it.
Absolutely, that's
Absolutely. Mr. Naveen, if you could tell us how, what all automation tools is your company leveraging, and how has it impacted your, operations?
Yeah, so technology definitely, has its always edge over the, in-person executions. So what we are doing, of course, change management is the most difficult thing, and not only in India but also everywhere. So first, we are trying to educate the people about the benefits of the technology, and then the advantage it can give in terms of applying their minds at the right place, rather than doing a paperwork only.
Yeah.
So auditing, actually is not a paperwork. Auditing is something which is beyond a paperwork. Or documentation is only the way you execute.
Yeah.
So with the technology and automation of the audit tools, you are able to have the right time put for the auditing on the ground, actual auditing. You are talking about the fraud and all these things. So data collection is one important thing, but how to analyze the data
Yeah.
is the most important part of it. And unfortunately, in the race of collecting the documents, many times the people ignore that fact that analyzing the information is the most important part of it.
Absolutely.
So with the audit automation tool, at least that collection of documents is being taken care by the tool itself.
Yeah.
Of course, you have to feed in the data, but at least in a structured way. So first thing, we have tried to have the change management, educated the people. Then we have set up a training center.
Yeah.
Senior management team, including the senior partners, are seeing the training themselves, and there are multiple round of training which we have already done with the people down the line. In fact, I am talking to some peer firms in the fraternity to have a common training centers.
True.
Right. So to have the larger advantage. Unfortunately, in our profession, there are a lot of iterations as well. So you have to have a continuous round of trainings as well.
Yeah.
Secondly, we have improved the infrastructure, IT infrastructure, and put a larger budget for the IT.
Okay.
So that apart from the audit documentation tool, we should have the analytics tool as well, and integrating both of them together. So that whatever the work the team were doing earlier, through the manual resources, now they are doing it through the technology.
Right.
As Mr. Praveen has rightly said, for the physical verification, the people have started going to drones as well. So, we are trying to find out those companies as well, who are using those kind of technologies.
Right.
So the important is this, when you talk about a change, you require a will. And if there is a will, there is a way.
Absolutely, and I think it's very important that technology has to be integrated in the firm. So, coming to you, Mr. Parveen, if you could tell us how audit automation has helped in the growth of CA firms, and of course, we were also talking about costs. How do you place that? The spend on audit automation, and how do you think it will lead to profits finally?
So again, I'll help, I'll explain with the help of an example.
Yeah.
So let's say there's an audit going on and it's an internal audit for a change. And you're doing audit of a retail chain where there's a lot of garments which are there across the country and you have to verify that. Now there's one way of that every place you will send a trainee or somebody who will, note down, the kind of garments which are there in that retail chain. The other way is to pick up those laser guns, tuck, 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 and it's all on the cloud, and it can give you the reconciliation of what is in the books and what is there in the stores, and if there are anything missing. So certainly it is saving the time, the technology. And when you apply, so the data is on the cloud, it is all there, and then with the tools, with the audit tools, you are able to analyze and you are able to tell the management, okay, these many things are missing and these many things are not recorded in your books. The time which is taken is much less than the manual work. So A, you are saving on cost, and B, your efficiency has increased because you are able to give a quality and more appropriate kind of analysis. And C, you are also able to demonstrate to the other client that, okay, we can do it like this and it is going to add value to your business. So the business grows and the efficiency improves and the cost is reduced.
Absolutely. Ruchi, could you tell us how audit automation will be impacting the audit processes, and do you see any change, anticipating any change as far as the role of the auditors is concerned?
Yeah, and I think I'm going to build upon Mr. Naveen and Mr. Praveen's responses here. And I was going through the guidelines of ICAI just a couple of days ago. And they use a very fabulous quote, which is auditing digital and digital audit.
Okay.
So let me explain that. So what they're saying is, as the environment is changing, there's a lot of digital advent into how businesses themselves are operating.
True.
The auditors have to elevate themselves to be auditing that digital landscape. He gave examples of drones, he gave example of garment factory. Absolutely. I mean, that's the way businesses are operating. So how do you audit that digital landscape? And second is, how do you leverage the digital tools to audit the firms?
Yeah.
So this is where I think, the auditors will have a massive shift in the way they are operating right now.
Yeah.
Most of the auditors are fabulous in their functional knowledge. And while Mr. Naveen said that, you may forget some of the rules, etc., but we know how much hard work they all have done to be CAs, and they know all the rules, etc. But now is the time where they have to also take the technical bent and start using these tools in the true sense to improve how do they audit. And we speak about chat GPTs. These are tools which are so intuitive and they don't need a massive technical knowledge. All you have to do is just be aware of what's available for you and start using in the processes. Yeah. So what I'm calling upon is, shifting from just that functional knowledge to functional and technology knowledge. That's one. Second is the communication part of it. And what I feel is, as businesses are evolving, their requirements are changing, the way they do businesses are changing, and hence the auditors also have to understand that in its entirety. And how do they communicate the outcomes, the risk profiles, the risk portfolios well with their clients is an equally important aspect to be considered. You don't want to be operating in silos where you think you're doing the audit automation, but the client is not in tune or aligned with you on that. So truly, if you look at it, it is an improvement on the functional and technical skill set, and at the same time, a very strong focus on communication, which is taking into consideration the guidelines, using the audit automation and making it transparent communication with your own clients, and hence ensuring all of us are on the same page.
Right. Mr. Naveen, if you could tell us, do you think how big is the challenge first of all, and how long do you think will it take this space to get entirely digitized?
Audit profession is a mix of some very large firms, medium and the smaller firms. Unfortunately, there are some sole practitioners as well, large practitioners as well, and the bandwidth with each of them is different. When we talk about very large firms, they are operating in a very large space, and they are able to get very good amount of fees as well because of their large scale of operations. Secondly, with the large scale of operations, they are able to leverage better, and they are having larger budgets. But unfortunately, for the people who are down the line, the sole proprietors or the smaller firms, they are not having the SMEs, so they are not having that kind of a support for having that kind of a technology implemented. Secondly, whether you talk about the cost, whether you talk about the people, even with a larger firm, like Mr. Praveen is there, myself is there, we are there with the larger setups. So we can afford to talk about all those things, we can afford to implement about all those things, but the people down the line. So I'm not very sure about whether the people down the line, they will be able to be fully digitized, but at least a larger fraction of firms would be able to digitize, because there is no other choice with them. And if they are not able to digitize themselves, they will become outdated, and they will not be able to offer any services, because the way the government is going, the way the businesses are going, you have to be totally digitized. So I think if not in a short term, at least in the medium or a long term, I see the professional firms have to completely digitize themselves, or the solutions like Walter Coover's, which is a cost effective solution. Probably these kind of more solutions will come into the market, which will help the SME sector to perform better. And in fact, the institute in the past has also done a lot of efforts to make the technology affordable to those people. So with the combination of those efforts, I think medium to long term would be the time period where there will be a complete digitization of this assurance field.
We are looking at that. Super. On this note only, let me get quickly both your views also on the same before we close the chat. So what do you think?
I think again an example.
Maybe loving the example.
So one of my clients, they were absolutely no, because they were an international company. So they were Japanese group. So they said, we will not use online transfers, because we don't know, there are a lot of risk. We will remain on the checks. Physical checks.
And we are not even talking about bitcoins right now.
Correct. So but when it came, the net banking and all, so there was a lot of resistance, and for a couple of years they did not go on internet banking. But you see now, they have to have internet banking, and even the smallest of the vendor is using your pay and all those kind of so it's required, it's requirement of the time. So even the smaller firms, whether it is proprietorship firms or the firms which are working in remote areas, they will also need to understand that using technology in audits is as important as any other thing. So you go to the bank to do their audits, nothing is there, everything is in the computers. If you do not apply technology in your audits, you are actually not doing the audits. So even the smallest of the firm will need to have those kind of technology.
Yeah.
So I see Ruchi has got a huge market for
Absolutely.
their tools,
Yeah.
and that if they are able to keep in mind the budget of those people,
Yeah.
I think these tools will do wonders.
So Ruchi, the last question does come to you. You are of course working with all the big wigs already. What do you have in mind? Any particular solutions you also have for the MSME sector?
So our audit automation software as of now is very well tailored to firms like Mr. Naveen's and Mr. Parveen's.
Yeah.
But at the same time, our team is constantly evolving on what kind of packages should be available within the software to cater to the industry nuances, to
Yeah.
cater to the, let's say, mid to large firms.
Right.
But picking upon the pointer that Mr. Parveen highlighted, the market is huge. There's MSMEs,
Yeah.
and there may be an opportunity for us to
And
look
it's
at.
still growing.
It is
Yeah,
growing.
yeah,
yes.
absolutely.
So there may be an opportunity for us to look at solutions which are purely focused and catering to that market space as well.
Right.
Always, I strongly believe that solutions and software has to evolve the way the market is unfolding unfolding itself. So definitely an opportunity for us, and we will look forward to standing up to that objective and challenge, and see how do we serve our Indian market in the right manner.
Absolutely. Thank you so much once again to all of you for joining us on this chat
Thank you,
today.
Divya.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.